Hello everyone and welcome back to our series on district thermal system modeling with Dragonfly. Now in the previous video, it was a long one I know, and I appreciate those of you who stuck through it, but we did a whole big set of two simulations, one with just a baseline building by building HVAC system approach to get EUI in those cases. And then we ran a model of a fourth generation district system and then looked at the EUI of the plant in this case, looking at these different end use components of that. And somewhat anticlimactically, the EUI of these two systems were pretty similar. The plant side EUI, this is kilowatt hours per square meter of building area of this district that we're simulating here, right, of 3 buildings. But we're going to delve into understanding why this EUI is the way that it is, such that in the following videos, you're going to see us really try and improve this district thermal system and make it much better than what we would have done on a building by building basis here. So, okay, as a note for this video, I am going to be using a program called the OpenStudio Application. I did not include this in the installation instructions in the beginning of the video because you don't need the OpenStudio application in order to be able to run the district thermal systems, right? I really just wanted to focus on getting you the things that you need to run the district energy model. But this is very useful. The OpenStudio app is very useful for visualizing the layout of the plants of the different thermal loops that we've set up for our system. So if you do want to follow along with this part, you can download the OpenStudio application by going to openstudiocoalition.org. You're going to have to log in and create an account if you don't already have it. But you'll see once you do so, you'll be able to download installers for the OpenStudio application. Right, I can grab a Windows installer here. I already have this set up on my system, but if you do want to follow along, download that executable, run it, and then you'll be able to visualize the HVAC the way that I'm doing here. Oh, and maybe I'll just add one more thing, is that you want to associate the OSM file type, right? So out of this component that ran the DES simulation for us, we have an OpenStudio model or .osm coming out of this component. All right, you'd want to associate that with the OpenStudio application ideally. And the reason for that is that, well, I'll first illustrate this. If I were to go use this LB open directory component and I connect up the OSM input to this, right, after having run everything, if you already have the file associated with OpenStudio application, well, you can just double click it to open it, or you can use a shortcut that I'm going to use throughout this video, which is that I can simply go and take and drag and drop this LB open file component. Actually, now that before I forget, let me make sure that you guys can see the names of these components well enough. All right, so I'm going to take this LB open file component, and if I already have the OSM file type associated with the OpenStudio app, it'll simply just open up the OpenStudio application with this model as soon as I finish, as soon as I connect it up to this LB open file component. So, all right, let me delete that now, and we will get into actually looking through, specifically, we're going to go through this HVAC systems tab of this OSM model to understand the makeup basically of this district energy system here. But before I do that, let me look at some of the results associated with this, right? So we have the overall EUI of the district system here, of this fourth generation district system, right? But it would be nice if we could actually understand on an hour by hour basis what is going on to create this EUI. So to do that, we have under the district thermal sub tab of the Dragonfly tab, at the very end of it, you'll see there are a few different components for loading in these different results, basically, that we get from the simulation so we can better understand it. And first, right, we've already used this one in the past, this dfread DES building load. But I'll just make a note, right? We use this to look at the output of the UrbanOpt simulation here, right? We connected up the SQL files of the building loads from here. But I just want you guys to be aware, you can also, here, I'm just moving this out of the way. You can also connect up the SQL from this district energy simulation component. And that is just in the same way that it's going to work practically the same way that it does for the UrbanOpt component that you saw there. All right, the one that did our individual building load simulations. So I can go and I can grab, let's see, an hourly plot component. And right, these are data collections for each of the buildings now. I can look at the cooling load, right? This is the chilled water, the kilowatts of chilled water that are needed for the building. I can look at the kilowatts of hot water needed for space heating, and then I can look at the kilowatt hours, kilowatts needed for the service hot water needs of this, right? So I just want you to get, I know we already looked at this in the last video, but I just want you to be aware this works for this component as well. Now, the real important part happens now as we look at some of these other ones. So for example, we can get this DF read DES temperature result. So this is useful for making sure that our model has run the way that we expected it. This is going to give us the temperature of the different loops that are contained within this model here. And it will start to give us a sense of what loops we actually have here. So if I connect up the SQL file here, you'll see we're going to get a few different data collections, right? We have actually a few different chilled water loops in the model here. And if I go and I connect this up to my hourly plot, and we'll go take a look over in the Rhino scene here, right? So this is, again, we're just using the DF read DES temperature result into an hourly plot. And you can see we have a central chilled water loop, right? And this is at a temperature somewhere between 6 and 8, it looks like. It kind of fluctuates a little depending upon the demand. But that is distinct from, right, we have separate chilled water loops for the office, the first office, the second office, and the residential, right? So you can see what this plant model contains, right? And it's not only modeling the central district energy system chilled water loop, we also have loops for each of the individual buildings, right? And you can see the temperatures, they're mostly, it looks like around 8, but they do float up a little bit, probably to 9 or 10, almost to 11 in some of these cases when there's a high demand on the loop. All right, so this basically gives you a sense, right, of how these loops operate. Right, you can make sure that the temperatures are what you expect, and that it's not. I mean, it's always going to get a little bit warmer than the set point usually as high demand is placed on the loop. But generally, right, if it's starting to get too warm, we know that the system is not functioning the way that we expect it to get. All right, so you can validate this for yourself. And similarly, right, we have a central hot water loop. If I connect up hot water to my hourly plot here, and that is generally above, well, this looks like it stays around 55 Celsius for the most part. It looks like it gets a little hot at some points and then a little bit lower when there's a high demand on the system, but generally, right, it's keeping the temperature pretty stable. I mean, here, right, we're just seeing really noise because all the temperatures of this building are pretty much exactly at, I mean, it's 49.6, but it's practically 50, right? These are all pretty much at 50 Celsius. All right, and although we can notice, right, so we actually have separate ones for space heating hot water and service hot water, right, for the office. Office 1 here, same thing for Office 2, and then a similar thing for the residential ones, right? And generally, right, all those temperatures are in the range that we're hoping to get here. So again, this temperature component is mostly made to help you understand, right, just to validate that all the temperatures, the supply temperatures are not getting too far out of range, right, from what you expect. We also have a condenser loop, right? So actually, this is a central condenser water loop, probably connected to the chiller. Well, actually, I know it's connected to the chiller. All right, but you can see that's, it floats up a little bit when there's a high demand on the system, but it generally remains around 20 to 22. And this is probably a good time for me to now actually walk through the OpenStudio app here. Because right in the same way we were looking at temperatures for each of those loops, you'll see in the OpenStudio app under the HVAC tab, you can actually pull up each of these loops and get a visual of what's going on inside of them. Right, so this is actually what our central chilled water loop looks like. We have one central water-cooled centrifugal chiller. Right, and so again, probably a lot of you guys saw that our cooling was a lot less compared to our baseline plant sim that just had an air-cooled chiller, and a lot of that efficiency is probably the result of using a water-cooled chiller with a better COP. All right, and I mean on the demand side, we can see these are heat exchangers going off to the individual building loops here, right? The 3 different building loops. But you can click on the little dot here with the chiller, and that's going to take you over to the condenser loop, right? Where you can see the chiller is actually on the demand side, and then on the supply side, we have a cooling tower, right? And it's this condenser water loop temperature, right? This is what we're actually looking at right now with this hourly plot here. Right, so this will help you draw like a one-to-one, visualization of actually, right, what these loops look like, and this gives you a sense of the performance, right, of the temperatures of these loops, right. But also, I mean, you guys should also feel free. I'm sure if you get deeper into this, you can probably customize some of the aspects within the OpenStudio app if you want. Although before you do that, we have a lot of ways to customize things within Grasshopper. So I'd finish watching this video series first. But all right, we understand, right? We have this central chilled water loop with a condenser loop, right? That's generally a little bit more efficient than our air-cooled chillers that we did when it was just a building by building simulation. Our hot water loop, this does not really seem all that different, right, than what we would have had on a building by building basis, right? We still have a central hot water loop boiler that's burning natural gas. Maybe the efficiency might be a little higher, maybe because when you're centralizing everything like this, you can usually try and squeeze some better efficiency out of things. Right, and certainly, right, we see our set points here, and then you'll see instead of having three heat exchangers here, let's see, there's one for space heating heat exchanger, there's one for surface hot water heat exchanger, right? So we have heat exchangers going off to like 6 different heating loops that are at the building by building level. Right, and I can similarly, right, I can click on this to go to the loop, right? This is an individual, let's see, in this case, this is the residential service hot water loop. And you can kind of understand the way we are modeling things here, right? So we saw the temperatures of this when just a second ago. But the way that we get away with not needing to model the entire building is that we simply stick a what is called a load profile plant object on here, right? So we were basically plugging in those hourly kilowatt hour values that we were looking at, just a few minutes ago with this DES building load. We're plugging those into load profile plant objects, right, so that we can be able to simulate the demand on these loops and generally get it to perform, right, though it basically allows us to evaluate how the DES and plant side work without us needing to do all the intensive calculations of individual building loads, which, I mean, those of you who have run those simulations know they can take a long time. Well, obviously, we also ran one for building by building basis in the last video, so you guys already get a sense of that. But right, you can see all of the individual loops are being modeled this way, right? Some are cooling loads and with chilled water loop in them, some are surface hot water, and some are space heating ones, right? But in total, we should have about 9 building level loops, yeah, here for all of these cases. Right, so that gives you a sense of, at least of how this model is structured here. We have one more result component I want to cover before we wrap up this video, and that's also under the district thermal tab. It's right next to the ones we were just looking at, and that's this DF DES energy result component. So if I drag and drop this one on the canvas and connect the SQL up to this, this is now going to give us a much more finer level of results. So it's actually going to give us the energy use of each piece of equipment within those different plant loops, right? So we have cooling equipment here that I can connect up, and this has, I think it may only be one. Yeah, it's just one data collection, right? And that's because there's only one chiller within our model here. But you can see, right, this is the electricity usage in kilowatt hours of that central water-cooled centrifugal chiller with a condenser, right? So you can actually go through and get a even deeper understanding of what's happening on a equipment by equipment piece of equipment by basis, right? And this is the central hot water boiler, right? These are the kilowatt hours of natural gas being burned there. And let's see, we have service hot water. I don't think, nothing is going to be here for service hot water, but you'll see with some of the other district systems that's going to come through. And then pumps. We have, if you guys were looking at the HVAC diagrams in the OpenStudio app, you'll notice there are a lot of pumps being used throughout here, right? And that's, this is actually useful to understand, right? Because our pumps, when we were doing on a building by building basis, it was a lot less energy consumed than when we had a district energy system. And this is really going to help you understand what are the pumps here that are actually really driving a lot of the energy use. Right, so certainly a lot of energy being consumed by this central chilled water loop. We have both a secondary pump and there's a primary pump as well. I think the primary pumps are here at the bottom. Yeah, right, so you have primary pumps that are constant, right, that are constantly consuming this amount. And this is a type of strategy that's done generally it tends to make the system more efficient to separate the pumps into primary and secondary. And here, if I go back here, right, you'll see this is our primary pump and this is our secondary variable pump here, right? I mean, they're both pretty intensive, But our variable one in particular can, especially for the chilled water loop, is consuming quite a lot of kilowatt hours there. And I should say this is to be expected for a fourth generation system. I mean, in general, district energy systems, you will have something like 25% of the energy of the system will just be pumps. And with fourth generation, as you guys remember from the previous videos, right, because the supply temperatures are even lower, there's even a higher volume of water that we need to pump around here to be able to deliver the same amount of heating or cooling to spaces. All right, so this is a big concern, right? And we're going to cover some ways that we can try and get these pumps to be a little bit more efficient in the following videos. But generally speaking, you're almost always going to have more pump energy in a fourth generation district system than you would with a building by building approach. And it's useful to see, right? I mean, we are modeling pumps inside the individual buildings here, right? So we do have central ones, but we also have the office chilled water loop, heating water loop, a service hot water loop, right? You can see the kilowatt hour usage of each of these individual pumps, and it does all add up. Right, and I think there's only one more thing here, right? There's heat rejection, right? Because there was that cooling tower, the fans of that cooling tower are going to use a little bit of energy, especially when in the middle of the summer here when we have peak cooling demand, right? And I don't think, yeah, there's nothing with supplemental heat here, but we'll get into that with some of the other systems. In the meantime, yeah, I just really want you guys to be aware of, right, at least of these different components, right, as they're very useful for helping understand why the EUI, where it comes from, basically, so that you aren't just simply stuck looking at this and not knowing what it comes from. And it's certainly a helpful exercise to cross-reference the data you get here from the simulation against the visualization like that which you have in the OpenStudio application. So, all right, that's all that I really wanted to cover in this video. In the next one, we're going to get deeper into really customizing this DES. Well, actually, I should say, before we do that, the next video is just going to be devoted to restructuring our Grasshopper script here so that we can customize this DES system without needing to rerun the building load simulation each time. Because you guys remember that took a while in the past video, and we had to do it 3 times because we made a bunch of different changes. Right, but once we have our building loads, and if we just want to make some changes to the properties of the plant here, we don't need to be doing this. So we're going to be restructuring this Grasshopper script so that we no longer need to rerun this building load simulation each time we change the DES. So thanks again, guys, for sticking through this video, and I will see you in the next one.